Hello folks, my name is Mark, this is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? So this is another one in a series I like to call Stupid Things That People Say, and this one is Stupid Things That Conservatives Say About Blue States. Okay, and what this is you'll hear this a lot, this idea that all the blue states and all the blue cities, you know, when I say blue, I mean states that are liberal and that are run by Democrats, that they're just shitty places to live, and all of the red states and all the red cities that vote Republican and are conservative are wonderful places to live. And this is something that you hear a lot out of, you see this a lot on conservative, like forums, you know, places like on Reddit, on certain places. You see libertarians saying this kind of thing. You also hear it a lot on conservative talk radio. You know, people like Michael Medved or Rush Limbaugh will repeat this kind of thing, and it's, you know, like a lot of the mantras that come out of the right wing. It really has no basis in factual reality. It's complete bullshit. So the first thing is that the blue states pay more in federal dollars than the red states do. As a matter of fact, the top 10 taker states, which is those states that take more money from the federal government than they pay in, are red states. And I think the one exception in the top 10 was Hawaii that I saw. So that means, you know, all the rest of them, you know, they take more money than they pay in, right? And the reason for that is because it's also it's also pretty you know, evident that the standard of living in all of the red states in general is a lot lower than it is in blue states. So that means, you know, your wages are higher in blue states, right? Unemployment is lower, right? That's one thing that, now you might hear some things like in Texas, well, they'll say like, well, Texas is a red state and it has very low unemployment. And, you know, that's true. The thing is, but, you know, if your unemployment is low, but your wages are low, that doesn't really do much to raise your standard of living now, does it? You know, it doesn't really help you if everyone has a job, but their job is like paying minimum wage and they can't afford to like pay, you know, the stuff that they need. You know, they can't afford to pay their bills. They can't afford to like, you know, get housing. That doesn't really help you. So, you know, a lower unemployment rate with lower rate wages is not really conducive to a higher standard of living. You know, another thing they'll say is that, well, taxes are lower in these states. Well, first off, you know, they take more, the reason why taxes can be lower in those states is because they take more in federal dollars to make up for those shortfalls, right? So people in the, you know, the big evil commie, you know, liberal blue states are actually subsidizing these, like, you know, freedom-loving, you know, all-American red states with our evil commie dollars. You know, we're paying for them so that they can, like, have lower taxes for their rich people, you know. But so your lower, so but anyway, let's get back to that. So your taxes are lower in the red states, yeah, but you also get less services. You know, I mean, having lower taxes doesn't always help you, you know. Because poverty is higher in red states than it is in blue states, right? But if you don't have any services, because you cut all your services because you don't cut all your taxes, right? So the people that are poor there, that make less money, that live there, are not getting the same kind of help that they would get in blue states. You know, they don't have the same kind of things to help homeless people, to, like, you know, women's shelters and food banks and things like that you would get in a state like New York or California. You don't get that kind of thing in Texas or Kentucky, right? So having low taxes doesn't fucking help you if you're poor. Okay. So there is something to be said about, you know, the kind of services that you get when you pay a higher tax rate. So I live in California, right, and I pay higher taxes than someone who in Kentucky pays, right? State taxes, that is, you know, higher property taxes and higher, you know, sales taxes, shit like that. But people that in Kentucky, they don't get anything, you know. So Kentucky right now is borderline, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but they're kind of like borderline failed state at this point. You know, they can't keep their doors open. You know, Kentucky is like having trouble paying for things like education and police and all the other stuff that my state with the higher tax rate is able to pay. I actually saw a thing on TV about this where, the state in Kentucky, they sold off all of their state-owned vehicles, for example. So any state will have like a fleet of cars, that they use for things like, for their employees and also for the police and stuff like that. They sold off all the cars in Kentucky for 1 year so that they could pay their bills because they won't raise fucking taxes. Kentucky is like all fucked up right now, and they're like cutting schools and they're cutting healthcare and everything. They can't keep it going, and they won't like raise, all they have to do is raise taxes to pay for some of these things, and they won't do it because they have this sort of, Republican mantra that lower taxes is good, while in the meantime it's bankrupting the fucking state. The same thing is happening in Michigan right now. So there's a big story out there about lead in the water in Flint, Michigan. Well, why do you think that happened, right? It's because the Republican governor there, his name's Rick Snyder, basically took over and he cut taxes for all the rich people and all the corporations, right? And then when the state wasn't able to pay for the things that it pays for, he declared a state of emergency and got unelected emergency managers to take over all these different segments of, the state government, right? And one of them took over the city of Flint, Michigan, and decided to, in order to save some money, decided to switch to a water source that they knew was polluted in order to save something like $1 million or whatever, right? That's why the water in Flint, Michigan is filled with lead. So you don't hear that kind of shit on the news, right? They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that, oh, well, the reason why this state is broke is because the Republicans fucking cut all the taxes, right? They make it sound like, oh, it's broke because Democrats have blah, 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 and their bad economic policies are not bringing business. It's like, no, they had the fucking money until you guys cut taxes and didn't, do anything to, bring in the revenue. And now the poor people in that state are fucking, paying for it. So that's what you're seeing, over and over and over in all these different places, in all the red states and all the states where all the, where these kinds of economic experiments, this voodoo economic kind of trickle down experiments are being tried, they're all bailing horribly, and their states are just being run into the ground, while in the evil commie tree hugging blue states like California and New York and Delaware, everything's running fine. California is in the black for the first time in 30 years, right? The reason why California was so messed up is in the past, right, in the 90s and the early 2000s, is because there's a small group, there's a law that says that the California State Senate has to pass, they have to have a 3/5 majority to pass any tax increases, right? And so for 30 years, they wouldn't raise taxes. And for all this time, shit just kept falling apart over and over and over in California. And then finally, in the last, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, we finally got a, Democratic majority in the state Senate. And we're able to raise taxes. And guess what? California's in the black. Okay. Now, for the first time in my life. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. Now, here's the thing, is that I'm not saying taxes are the best thing ever. I'm not saying, oh, wait, everybody should be happy to pay taxes and I want to pay more. No, taxes are suck. Taxes are horrible. I hate taxes, But, if you want to have a society that, if you want to live in a place that isn't a pile of shit, you need to pay for it. You know what I mean? Somebody has to pay for the roads. Somebody has to pay so we can have clean water. Somebody has to pay so that we have, police and fire protection and that our kids can be educated, right? So it's got to come from somewhere. So if you're just going to cut taxes willy-nilly and not figure these things out, that's what fucking happens. So anyway, getting back to the, I kind of went off on a tangent, but getting back to the whole red state, blue state thing, it's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. There's really no proof. I mean, if you look at all the blue states and you look at all the red states, they've had a mix of Republican and Democratic governors. The cities have had a mix of Republican, Democratic mayors. There really is no metric that you can say, well, this state has always been Democratic and it's a shitty place to live, and this state has always been Republican. It's a wonderful place to live. It's bullshit. It's bullshit that you hear on like the radio, you know, that radio fucking talking heads can say, because they know that the people that listen to conservative radio aren't gonna fucking look into it. They're not gonna like research it. They just believe anything you fucking tell them, and it's so that they can like, you know, feel like they're, I don't you know, it's just bullshit. It's complete bullshit. And whenever you hear that, you should just turn the fucking channel, you know. And anybody that says that kind of thing online is a fucking moron. Adios.